Theme parks are fundamentally built on an illusion. They are massive, highly controlled environments designed to simulate extreme danger while mathematically guaranteeing absolute safety. We strap ourselves into fiberglass seats and allow machines to hurl us through the air, confident that the ground below is solid and the physics are perfectly calculated. But what happens when you remove the illusion? What happens when human engineering arrogance decides to abandon the safety of solid land entirely and build a hypercoaster in one of the most violent, unpredictable, and hostile environments on the face of the Earth? Welcome to the terrifying reality of the $60 billion deep-sea coaster megaproject. This is not a simulation. This is the ultimate catastrophic collision of offshore marine engineering, extreme high-speed physics, and pure primal human terror. Built miles off the coast, directly in the dark, churning waters of the open ocean, this structure is a colossal, twisting monument of high-tension steel and aerospace-grade acrylic that doesn't just ride above the waves. It violently plunges directly beneath them. To comprehend the sheer, mind-bending insanity of constructing a high-speed roller coaster in the middle of the deep ocean, you must first understand the battlefield. The ocean is an undefeated enemy. It is a relentless machine of kinetic energy, crushing hydrostatic pressure, and highly corrosive saltwater designed to destroy metal. Before a single piece of coaster track could be laid, engineers had to conquer the abyss. They had to build a foundation capable of not only withstanding the brutal force of Category 5 typhoons, but also the immense, localized kinetic shockwaves generated by a massive coaster train pulling 5 Gs of force at 150 miles per hour. The construction began with an all-out industrial assault on the seabed. There is no ground here to pour a traditional concrete slab. Instead, the project utilized fleets of the largest ultra-deep-water drill ships on the planet. These floating mechanical leviathans navigated into the dark, choppy marine layer, fighting against 20-foot ocean swells and freezing, howling winds. To keep these massive ships perfectly stationary above their targets, they relied on highly advanced dynamic positioning systems, networks of multi-directional thrusters constantly firing against the violent ocean currents, controlled by military-grade GPS. Once positioned, the heavy hydraulic rotary drills were unleashed. Massive, diamond-studded cutter heads were lowered thousands of feet through the dark, freezing water. When they struck the deep oceanic bedrock, the violence was absolute. The massive drills violently chewed through ancient basalt and granite, boring colossal trenches deep into the crust of the earth. The friction generated by grinding through solid rock at the bottom of the sea was so intense that the surrounding ocean water literally boiled, sending plumes of superheated steam and thick, pulverized rock slurry erupting into the dark currents. Into these newly violently carved abyssal trenches, engineers dropped the anchors. These were not standard concrete pilings. They were colossal, heavily armored steel pillars, measuring over 30 feet in diameter and weighing thousands of tons each, closely resembling the deep-sea supports used for extreme offshore oil rigs. To permanently lock these colossal iron trees into the bedrock, specialized submersible pumps blasted tens of thousands of gallons of high-pressure, fast-curing marine concrete deep into the boreholes. This specialized chemical mixture is designed to cure rapidly even in freezing, hyper-pressurized saltwater, creating an unbreakable, permanent fusion between the cold steel and the ancient rock of the seabed. Slowly, a massive, rusted steel forest began to rise from the dark depths, breaking the surface of the violent ocean to create the impossible foundation. But conquering the ocean floor was only the preamble to the true terror of this design. The defining feature of this $60 billion mega project is the underwater drop. The track does not merely skim the surface of the water. It executes a completely vertical 90-degree plummet directly into the dark, crushing depths of the sea. To make this physically possible without instantly drowning the passengers, engineers had to construct the largest, most heavily armored transparent tunnel in human history. They could not use standard glass. Under the immense hydrostatic pressure of the deep ocean, standard glass would instantly shatter into millions of lethal shards. Instead, the tunnel was forged from colossal, multi-ton cylinders of aerospace-grade transparent acrylic, originally developed for the pressure hulls of deep-sea military submarines. These massive acrylic blocks, over 20 inches thick, were manufactured in highly specialized vacuum chambers on the mainland, utilizing advanced liquid polymers to ensure there were absolutely no microscopic air bubbles that could compromise their structural integrity under crushing pressure. Transporting and installing these massive transparent tubes was a logistical nightmare. Heavy maritime gantry cranes, mounted on colossal barge platforms, slowly lowered the heavy acrylic cylinders directly into the churning gray waves. This is where the human element faced its most terrifying challenge. Specialized deep-sea saturation diving crews were deployed into the freezing, pitch-black water. Working in absolute darkness, illuminated only by the harsh, narrow beams of their helmet lights, these divers had to manually guide the massive, multi-ton acrylic sections into perfect alignment. The environment was lethal. A single miscalculation, a single sudden shift in the ocean current could violently crush a diver between thousands of tons of heavy acrylic and steel. Communicating through distorted radiocomms, breathing specialized helium-oxygen mixtures to stave off nitrogen narcosis, the divers utilized massive pneumatic hydraulic torque wrenches to bolt the heavy titanium flanges of the tubes together. They installed triple redundant, heavy-duty industrial polymer seals between every section, creating a completely watertight, pressure-sealed void directly on the ocean floor. Once the colossal transparent snake was fully assembled, heavy industrial pumps sucked millions of gallons of seawater out of the interior, exposing a completely dry atmospheric tunnel entirely surrounded by the crushing weight and terrifying darkness of the deep ocean. With the abyssal tunnel secured, the focus violently shifted above the surface to the assembly of the track itself. Building a high-speed roller coaster on solid land is an exercise in extreme mathematical precision. The steel tracks must be perfectly aligned to the millimeter, otherwise the massive heavy trains will tear themselves apart from violent vibration at high speeds. Attempting to achieve this microscopic level of precision while suspended hundreds of feet above a violent, unpredictable ocean is borderline impossible. The twisted, heavily engineered sections of the track, painted in highly visible, stark industrial colors that contrasted violently with the dark gray of the ocean, were loaded onto massive, heavy-lift vessels.
The ballast module needs repositioning before we commit to this depth. Agreed, the alignment tolerances are too tight otherwise.
Colossal floating cranes precisely maneuvered these heavy steel sections into the air. But high above the water, the extreme coastal winds turned the heavy track sections into massive, multi-ton pendulums swinging violently on their thick steel cables. High-altitude ironworkers and specialized marine welders, dangling like spiders from razor-thin nylon safety harnesses, fought a constant, terrifying battle against the elements. They stood precariously on the wet, slippery steel of the ocean pillars, waiting for the swinging tracks to align. When the heavy steel finally locked into place, the welders unleashed blinding showers of orange sparks. The environment was absolute chaos. The extreme chemical heat of the welding torches violently clashed with the freezing, highly corrosive ocean sea spray that constantly battered the workers' visors. Every single inch of the massive steel structure had to be heavily treated with specialized, thick marine-grade anti-corrosive epoxy, a foul-smelling, heavy chemical coating designed to stop the hypersaline ocean air from instantly rusting the steel into dust. To propel the heavy coaster train to speeds capable of inducing sheer terror, a traditional mechanical chain lift system was completely out of the question. The corrosive salt and constant moisture would destroy the moving mechanical parts within weeks. Instead, the engineers turned to advanced electromagnetic propulsion. They constructed a terrifying, completely vertical, 400-foot drop tower that rises like a massive rusted industrial monolith out of the dark water. Bolted directly to this colossal spine are hundreds of massive linear synchronous motors, or LSMs. These high-voltage electromagnets use alternating magnetic fields to literally rip the train upward and hurl it forward without any moving mechanical contact. But waterproofing a multi-megawatt high-voltage electrical grid in the middle of the ocean required staggering engineering. Miles of heavily insulated, thick copper cabling were threaded through the steel catacombs of the support pillars. The massive electromagnetic stators were sealed in heavy-duty, impact-resistant composite resins, ensuring that the violent ocean spray and torrential typhoon rains could not trigger a catastrophic explosive electrical short circuit. When the final massive steel bolt is torqued into place and the final electrical circuit is sealed, the visual reality of the $60 billion deep-sea coaster is absolutely staggering. It stands as a twisted, mechanical monstrosity rising violently from the natural beauty and primal terror of the open ocean. The experience of riding this engineering marvel is designed to break the human psyche. As the heavy, highly aerodynamic coaster train slowly leaves the loading platform, the only sound is the howling wind and the crashing of massive gray waves against the steel pillars below. The train locks onto the vertical 400-foot tower. The heavy magnetic stators hum with terrifying electrical power, sending deep, low-frequency vibrations through the chests of the passengers. Slowly, agonizingly, the train is pulled straight up into the thick, heavy marine clouds. At the absolute peak, 400 feet above the sea, the train crests the massive steel apex and stops. For a terrifying, breathless moment, riders are left dangling at a completely 90-degree angle, facing straight down. There is no ground below them. There is only the violent, churning, dark abyss of the open ocean, waiting to swallow them whole. Suddenly, with a violent, deafening mechanical crack, the heavy magnetic brakes release. Gravity and electromagnetism violently take over. The heavy train plummets vertically at 150 miles per hour. The sheer aerodynamic drag creates a deafening roar as the train slices down toward the water. Just at the absolute microsecond when the human brain registers that a catastrophic impact with the ocean's surface is unavoidable, the heavy train violently threads the needle. It screams directly into the opening of the massive, submerged, transparent acrylic tube. As the train instantly breaches the waterline, the visual transition is violent and terrifying. The bright, blinding gray light of the stormy sky instantly vanishes, replaced by the crushing, claustrophobic darkness of the deep ocean. Millions of gallons of displaced water violently explode around the heavy acrylic tunnel, creating a massive hydrodynamic shockwave that slams against the transparent walls. Inside the tube, the riders are surrounded entirely by the terrifying, silent abyss of the sea, traveling at impossible speeds through a dry void while the crushing weight of the ocean presses down from all sides. The train violently twists and corkscrews through the underwater labyrinth, a chaotic blur of dark water, massive steel support rings, and the terrifying realization of just how deep they have gone. The deep-sea coaster is not merely an amusement ride. It is the ultimate manifestation of human engineering dominance over the most hostile environment on the planet. It is a $60 billion act of defiance against the crushing weight and violent kinetic energy of the ocean. By merging the brutal, unyielding strength of offshore oil rig construction with the hyper-advanced mathematical precision of extreme aerospace and magnetic engineering, China has created a monument to human thrill-seeking that physically defies the laws of nature. It stands permanently anchored in the freezing depths, a terrifying, awe-inspiring masterpiece of twisted steel and transparent acrylic, offering the most dangerous, high-stakes, and psychologically shattering journey ever constructed in human history.
All right, hold it there. A little to the left. Steady, steady. Okay, bring it down. Watch your feet.
Apex 1, connection 5 verified. Copy that, moving to 6.
Is that aligned yet?
Almost. Send down the impact wrench. Start tightening bolt 4.
Is that within the tolerance margin for the chassis? Negative, we have structural compromise.
Stress is holding steady at 8 to 6%. All readings are well within limits. Status approved. We have validation. Check the harness restraints. Harness locked in place. The test is complete. Pulling up the G-force time history now. There's the peak. Underwater section hit 4.5. We did it. It actually works.